In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create a color matte layer to separate our sign into different pieces so that we can capture 4 different alphas in the exact same image. So here's where we left off, and you can open up 10_end. So we have our shadows set up, so let's select our sign, and I'm just going to hit up until we get up to our sign group. Let's create a new layer. Let's call this color matte, or you can call it whatever you like. And then we want to right-click and add selected objects. So we have our sign group added to our color matte layer here. So now we want to break this into some different pieces. So let me go into my split, hypershade, and perspective view so we can take a look at our sign here. So what I would like to have a different alpha or a different transparency map for the front of our sign, for these different legs here, for the bases of our sign, and then these bags, because it'd be really easy to color correct and fix these if I had alphas for each of them individually. Now, of course, we could create multiple layers and just output multiple images, but we have to remember that we have a RGB and alpha channel to work with in our images. So we're essentially outputting 4 different images whenever we output an RGBA image. Now, most of the time, the red, green, and blue channels each have very similar image data. They just have the different color spectrums. So what we can do is we can use this system to isolate each of these objects into its own color channel. We can do that by creating surface shaders. So let's drop in 4 surface shaders. So I'm just going to click the surface shader button 4 times to drop in these 4 surface shaders. Okay, so let's begin by coloring these the primary colors. So start here and let's call this one red, and let's color it red. So in the out color, we want to click this, and in our color picker, we want to use this red here, which is 100% saturation, 100% value, or 1 and 1, and 0 hue. Okay. We also want a green. So again, in the out color, let's choose this green, which is 120 hue, 1 saturation value. Let's pick blue. And again, we want to choose it from the color picker at 240, 1 and 1, because this is a pure blue. And for our last one, we want to use the alpha. So we can just call this alpha. So now let's assign this to our sign. So I'm just going to shrink my hypergraph here, or hypershade, select my sign here, and let me actually double check to make sure I'm on the correct layer. Yeah, I'm on my color matte layer, so I'm not going to be unassigning anything. So let's grab the front of the sign, right click, assign our red to it. Let's grab these 2 legs here. Let's assign the green to those, and then let's grab our rusty pieces here and assign the blue. Now, of course, in this case, we only have 4 different objects, so we can use just 4 different surface shaders. However, if you had more objects that you would want to do or want to create color mattes for, what I would do is I would create a new color matte layer and then assign those objects these same 4 colors. You don't want to start adding in other colors because that starts to corrupt your data. We want pure red, pure green, pure blue, and pure alpha. So let's select our bags here. You can just hit up, select them, and hit up to grab their groups, or just manually select them if that doesn't work. And let's assign our alpha to this. So assign our alpha material to the selection. So let's double check this and see what's going on. So I'm going to hit render. And as you'll notice, Final Gather still is on this layer, so we need to go in and remove that to speed up the render. So we have our red, our green, and our blue, and they're completely solid. But when we jump to our alpha, it has the entire matte, and we don't want that. We want only those little bags there. So what we need to do is inside the red, green, and blue surface shaders, we need to turn this out matte opacity to 0. So that's on the green, so let me select my red material, take the out matte to 0, or black, and then select my blue material and out matte opacity to black. And now if I render this, we should see that we have the bags mostly isolated. I say that because we have one more thing to assign. But you'll see that the rest of our shaders are no longer applying an alpha to this. So we have our bags, but we still have those little almost washers. So if you have objects that you do not want to show up in your color matte pass, in our case these 5 black objects in our backboard here. You can select those and make sure not to select anything you want, and just assign our usual use background shader. So assign an existing material, our use background 1. And let's jump into our render settings now and turn off Final Gather. So that'll be under the Features tab. And again, we want to right-click, create a layer override, and then turn off Final Gather. So right-click, create layer override, and we want to turn it off. And now let's jump back to our camera to double check that everything's working fine, and let's hit render. And let me actually move my camera back just by scrubbing. So once we hit render, we should see our final color matte. So here's our alpha, and here are the 3 different objects in our red, green, and blue channels. So we'll go, or when we jump into our compositing application, we'll take a look at how we can split these out and then use these to color correct each individual piece. Alright, and so that's how we created a color matte layer inside of Maya to give us the flexibility of having 4 different alphas essentially in a single image. And again, that was just creating a new layer, creating 4 new surface shaders, one with a red, one with a green, one with a blue, all 3 of the colors at a 0 matte opacity, and then 1 black at a 1 matte opacity.